This video will give you a quick overview of the APA Style Guide chapter, Bias-Free Language. Using affirming and inclusive language is all about making your writing very clear to readers by choosing the most specific and appropriate terms when writing about groups of people. That often means we have to revisit preconceptions and language that we learned growing up that are outdated or reinforce prejudice. Focus on relevant characteristics. If you're discussing a group of people in your writing, don't add unnecessary descriptors. The APA gives us an example. You would be unlikely to mention participants' sexual orientation in a study of cognition because sexual orientation is not relevant to cognition. However, you would likely mention participants' gender in a study of stereotype threat because gender is relevant to the examination of stereotype threat. Acknowledge relevant differences that do exist. There are many times when you'll need to describe differences between groups of people. Just be sure it makes sense for the information you're trying to gain or explain. Like, are women less likely than men to ask for a raise? Do people with ADHD have a harder time with time management skills? Be appropriately specific. When you can, use specific terminology when describing people you are discussing. Here are a few examples given to us by the APA. Use exact ages or age ranges instead of young people or the elderly. For example, 13 to 18 years old or 65 to 90 years old. Use the names of conditions when writing about people with disabilities, such as people with dyslexia or people with Alzheimer's disease. When focusing on gender, be specific. For example, cisgender women, transgender men, non-binary people. If not focusing on gender, use non-gendered terms like people, individuals, participants, etc. Nation or region of origin is more specific when writing about racial or ethnic groups. Chinese American is more specific than Asian American, for example. When writing about sexual orientation, use specific terms for orientations, like lesbian, bisexual, etc., instead of a blanket term like gay. Use income ranges or specific designations when referring to income levels. For example, instead of low income, you might say households earning $35,000 a year or less. Be sensitive to labels. Put people first, ahead of their condition, if talking about disability or illness. Use phrases like people with anorexia, or people with a history of substance abuse, or people who use wheelchairs. Unless a community says different, such as the deaf community, respect what communities prefer. You can figure out this information with a little research, or when possible, by talking to the people you're writing about to learn their preferences. And if talking about individuals, use what they prefer, as they may have a differing preference from their community at large. Pejorative or judgmental adjectives, negative or positive, aren't necessary. Instead of the successful group, you might say the group who completed the task, or instead of the low-functioning group, you might say the group that scored in this range. APA says, describe using the terms of the measures used to classify them. And avoid false hierarchies. For example, if you notice you are referring to regular students, circle back and ask yourself how you're defining regular and whether you meant to suggest that students within that group are the standard against which others should be judged or compared. Even seemingly subtle things, like listing groups of people in order of dominance or power, men, women, and children, for example. Whether or not it's intended, can perpetuate the notion that those groups are put in order of worth. So when looking over your writing, remember to use people-first language when describing groups, unless a group prefers something else. Include only relevant descriptions, and be appropriately specific. Avoid using judgmental adjectives and descriptors. Be aware of creating false hierarchies and comparing groups to a confusing standard. Check out the APA Style blog for more in-depth discussion of using bias-free language, including a number of examples and do's and don'ts. And feel free to visit the Hack Girl Research and Writing Studio on the second floor of Haggard Hall, or chat with us online at library.wwu.edu/RWS for feedback and support.